You know, when you sent over Barry Schwartz's book, The Paradox of Choice, it really got me thinking. I mean, how often do we just assume that having more options is, well, better?
Oh, constantly. It feels almost like a default setting, doesn't
That's
it?
totally. Like this morning picking toothpaste, it's whitening, sensitive, gum health, mint, cinnamon. It's a lot. And that's just toothpaste.
Mm,
Then you have the huge life choices, careers, where to live, even what show to stream tonight.
exactly. We're sort of taught, aren't we, that more choices equals more freedom and therefore more happiness,
Yeah.
more control.
It just feels so intuitive.
It absolutely does. But that's the brilliance, I think, of what Schwartz lays out in The Paradox of Choice.
Yeah.
Less is more. He just flips that idea right on its head.
Uh-huh.
He introduces this core paradox, this really counterintuitive idea that having too many options can actually, overwhelm us, make us anxious,
Yeah.
and weirdly make us less satisfied, not more.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely goes against the grain.
It's a pretty powerful challenge to a really common belief.
So, okay, for this deep dive, our mission is basically to unpack this, to look at why something that seems so good, having all these choices, can actually feel like, well, a burden sometimes.
Right.
We'll pull out some really eye-opening stuff directly from the source you shared, specifically for you listening, to maybe help navigate this modern world of just endless options.
Sounds good.
Okay, so first things first. When I first heard this term, choice overload, my immediate reaction was kind of like, is that just me being indecisive sometimes, or is it like a genuine psychological thing?
Yeah.
What does the source actually say? Is it real?
Oh, it's very real. It's not just a fleeting feeling, not at all. The research Schwartz presents makes it really clear. Choice overload is a documented phenomenon. It properly impacts our well-being.
How so?
Well, think about it. Modern life just showers us with choices, right?
Yeah.
From the tiny things, like you said, toothpaste, to the huge ones like careers or partners. And this constant barrage, it leads to what psychologists call decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue.
Right. Yeah. And stress, anxiety, sometimes even deep regret after we've chosen something.
Yeah.
It's that fear, the fear of making the wrong choice. It can be paralyzing.
Ah, the endless Netflix scroll. I know that feeling. You spend so long trying to pick the perfect movie, you end up watching nothing.
Exactly. That paralysis is a classic symptom.
Yeah.
You're so afraid of picking something suboptimal that you just freeze.
Okay, so feeling overwhelmed, paralyzed, that makes sense. But the source, it goes deeper, doesn't it? It talks about how we actually approach decisions differently, almost like decision-making personalities.
Yes, that's one of the really fascinating parts of the book. He introduces two distinct types of choosers.
Right, and I think this is where it gets really interesting for listeners, because you'll probably recognize yourself or people you know in these descriptions.
Definitely, he calls them maximizers and satisficers.
Okay, break those down for us. What's a maximizer?
So a maximizer, this is someone who needs to make the absolute best choice possible. Every single time, they'll research endlessly, compare every feature, every price, every review.
Like someone spending hours finding the absolute cheapest flight, even if it saves like $5.
Precisely. Or agonizing over the perfect Instagram caption. They exhaust all the options because they're driven by the need to get the very best. But here's the catch.
Uh-oh.
Often, even after all that effort, they end up feeling disappointed or anxious because there's always that lingering thought, could I have done even better?
Wow. So it sounds like you're almost setting yourself up for disappointment if you're a maximizer. By definition, almost.
In many ways, yes.
Yeah.
They're aiming for an often unattainable ideal of perfect. Now, contrast that with a satisficer.
Okay, satisficer. What's their deal?
A satisficer is looking for something different. They're looking for good enough.
Good enough, not the absolute best.
Nope. They have their criteria, their standards, but once they find an option that meets them, a flight that fits the budget and schedule, a jam that tastes good, they choose it, and they stop looking.
So they don't obsess over whether there might be a slightly better jam out there somewhere.
Exactly. They find a viable option, they choose it, and they move on. And the research suggests they tend to make decisions faster, feel less stressed about them, and, crucially, often feel happier overall with what they chose.
That's quite a difference. Okay, I'm definitely thinking about where I fall on that spectrum now.
Yeah.
Probably you listening are too. So what does this actually mean for us? How can understanding which type you lean towards, how does that help?
Well, Just knowing your tendency, whether you lean towards maximizing or satisficing, can be incredibly powerful. It gives you self-awareness.
Right?
If you know you're a maximizer, you can recognize that tendency when it pops up. You can consciously decide, okay, for this decision, maybe I don't need the absolute perfect outcome. Maybe good enough is actually great. It lets you choose your strategy more wisely.
So you can kind of manage your own impulses a bit better.
Precisely. You can put some boundaries in place to maybe counteract that endless search for the unattainable best, especially on decisions that don't warrant that level of effort.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's something else from the source that really struck me as counterintuitive. It's just that even when we pick something objectively great, like a really good option, we often end up feeling worse. How does that even work?
Yeah, that's another core piece. More choice, less satisfaction. It seems paradoxical, right? You'd think more choice leading to a great outcome would equal maximum happiness.
Exactly.
But Schwartz introduces this really potent concept he calls opportunity cost anxiety.
Opportunity cost anxiety.
So opportunity cost is what you give up when you choose one thing over another. With tons of options, the opportunity costs feel huge. Even if you chose something wonderful, your mind starts dwelling on the attractive features of all the options you didn't choose.
So it's the what ifs. What if I'd picked the other holiday destination? What if I'd bought the other car?
Exactly. It's the anxiety stemming from wondering if another path, another choice, would have been even slightly better. And that constant what if actively eats away at your satisfaction with the choice you did make, even if it was a genuinely good one.
That is, wow. That explains so much, that lingering doubt even after you bought something you actually like.
It's the ghost of the unchosen alternatives, essentially. They haunt your enjoyment of the present choice.
Is this mainly for big things, or does it happen with smaller stuff too, like choosing headphones or something?
Schwartz argues it happens across the board. Obviously, the stakes are higher for big life decisions, so the anxiety might be stronger. But yeah, even with smaller purchases, if there were dozens of options, a maximizing brain, especially, will run those what-if calculations. Maybe those other headphones had slightly better bass.
Right. Okay. This really challenges that whole idea we have about freedom, doesn't it? Where it sort of sold this narrative, more choice equals more freedom equals more happiness, full stop. But the source seems to be saying, maybe not.
It's nuanced. Schwartz directly tackles what he calls the myth of freedom. He's not saying freedom is bad, of course not. Freedom, the autonomy to choose our own path, our beliefs, our actions is fundamental.
Okay.
But when freedom gets translated solely into this overwhelming, practically infinite number of consumer choices, or even life path choices, it stops feeling liberating. It starts feeling like a burden.
So, too much of a good thing.
Kind of. The sheer volume can lead to dissatisfaction, anxiety, paralysis. Which isn't really what we think of as freedom, is it? True liberation might actually come from having fewer but more meaningful choices, rather than just a paralyzing flood of options.
Fewer but more meaningful choices. That's a really key distinction. Okay, so this raises the big question then. If we're surrounded by choices, and too many can be bad for us, what does the source actually suggest we do? How do we navigate this paradox without going crazy?
Yeah, thankfully the book doesn't just diagnose the problem. It offers some really practical strategies, concrete things you can do.
Good, we need those.
First off, set limits. Consciously decide not to explore every single option. Maybe look at just 3 or 4 brands of TVs, not all 20. Give yourself a manageable set. This immediately cuts down the potential for overload and fatigue.
Okay, limit the options you even consider. That makes sense. What else?
Second, actively try to be a satisficer where you can, especially for decisions that aren't, life-altering. Ask yourself, does this need to be the absolute perfect choice, or is good enough perfectly fine? Often it is. Embracing good enough saves time, energy, and anxiety.
So choose to be satisfied with good enough rather than striving for the maybe impossible best.
Exactly. And related to that, the third point is to make peace with good enough. Once you've made a decision using that satisficing approach, consciously accept it. Let go of the second guessing. Tell yourself this is a good choice. And resist the urge to keep comparing or wondering what if. That's crucial for tackling that opportunity cost anxiety.
Actively shutting down the what ifs.
Yes. And finally, appreciate what you choose. Instead of ruminating on the options you didn't pick, focus on the positive aspects of the one you did. Practice gratitude for the good features of your choice, the benefits it brings. Actively cultivate enjoyment of what is, rather than mourning what isn't.
Set limits, be a satisficer when possible, make peace with good enough, and appreciate what you chose. Those feel doable, like
Right.
concrete actions you can take.
They are, and they're not about denying yourself choice, but about managing it intelligently so it serves you rather than overwhelms you.
Right. It's about shifting perspective, changing our approach to how we decide things, which honestly sounds like it could bring a lot more peace and definitely less stress into daily life.
Absolutely.
So, just to kind of wrap up this deep dive, then, we've really explored this surprising idea from Barry Schwartz that more choice isn't always better. In fact, sometimes, counterintuitively, it can lead to less satisfaction, more anxiety, more stress.
Okay.
But understanding these dynamics, like being a maximizer versus a satisficer, and especially using those practical strategies we just talked about, setting limits, embracing good enough that can genuinely help us navigate this world of choice more effectively.
Definitely. And maybe that leads us to a final thought to leave you with, something really drawn from the heart of the source's message. Freedom is good. We value freedom. But maybe too much freedom, specifically in the form of just endless, overwhelming choices, can actually make life feel harder, not easier. Sometimes, perhaps more often than we think, having fewer options might actually give us more peace, more tranquility.
Fewer options, more peace. That's definitely something to chew on.
So we'd encourage you to just reflect on that. Where in your own life might this idea apply? Where could maybe embracing fewer options, less agonizing, paradoxically, bring you a bit more calm, more satisfaction?